Hello, everyone. It's Charlton, and I want to continue to talk about the Mollie Tibbetts case. And for this video, I just want to, even though honestly, this video could be 4 hours long. I'm probably gonna have to start live streaming, but I got a job to do too. I can't do that. Right? Not yet, and I'm way far away from that. But anyways, I mean, there's so much. I wanted to bring up one point, and it took me 10 minutes to make one point in my previous attempt at this. So let me just quickly go through this, and I'll make other videos besides the Mollie Tibbetts video case, but there are so many things to this situation, this case, that are so strange that I think are extremely fishy, big time. And I don't know. I don't know where this is going, but there's some stuff that just does not add up to me. So let me just try to bang these out as quickly as possible. Just things, listing things that are really I've an issue with. Starting with who his attorney, and I don't have, even though I don't, he is, he doesn't have the greatest personality in the world. That's for sure. Um, uh, Alan Richards, but that's not really my problem here. Is my number one question is, and I really wish somebody would ask him this: who is paying for this person? Who is paying for the privately retained attorney for Cristhian Rivera? And whoever it is, it's a free country. Everyone can do whatever they want. But I'd like to know that. And he was it wasn't just him, but there was also an interpreter there that was a privately retained interpreter in court on Wednesday. And Wednesday actually was a second court appearance, as I understand it. But that one was televised. They had cameras in there, press in there. The first one didn't. The first one was where a $1 million cash bond was established and a couple other items. I think he asked for a gag order actually at that point. And I don't know when that was. That probably would have been Tuesday, and I think Wednesday was the second court appearance. In any event, I want to know who's paying for him. I mean, and based on some of the reporting, I think it's the farm. Basically because there's this back and forth about whether or not Cristhian is here legally or not, or is allowed to work in the U.S. legally, and he keeps saying that he was most of the time. At this point in this interview with MacCallum, which is bizarre, it really is. It's not me with my bringing my own political bent into it. It was a strange interview, and his responses were strange. He just won't concede a single thing. Like he won't even concede, that this is up and that's down. It's just silliness, kind of. But whatever. Over the issue of whether or not he is here illegally, and by this point, I think it's fairly well established that he is. Okay, and let me, as fast as possible, review this sort of thing, this procedure that the farm went through. Because initially they said he was here legally, that he was vetted through the E-Verify system. Then they backed off of that and said no, he wasn't vetted through the E-Verify system. He was actually vetted through the Social Security Administration verification system. And that he was cleared through there. Then they finally came basically clean, or conceded that he wasn't who he said that he was, and that he had provided fake identification, a photo ID with somebody else's name on it, and a social security number that wasn't his, and that he was here illegally. And I think the various agencies that would authenticate that assessment have done so, and said that he isn't here illegally, even though they've said it from the very beginning. Whoever it is, ICE, I don't know who the agency are that would determine that. But so, okay, there's a reason why I just went through all that, because in the beginning of that, when he was supposedly somebody that was vetted through the E-Verify system initially, and he wasn't, but that's what the company supposedly believed, it would almost make some sense to be paying for his counsel, paying for his legal representation at that stage, because supposedly he's a legal working person in the United States, and an employee for their and he lives on their farm and so forth. But by this point, he's not here legally, and I think that's fairly well established. But yet, the same attorney that presumably was hired by, presumably, I don't know that for a fact, and I'll show you a few statements that kind of where I come to that conclusion, but presumably, he still has the same attorney that was hired by the employer who initially thought he was here legally, if you follow me. Again, I just want to know who's paying for this dude and why. Okay, I think that's a pretty basic, fair question. It is. Okay, so but the statement that I'm drawing from is this right here, one of them, because he kept referencing Craig Lang. He did in court documents. The attorney did in terms of his saying that he's here legally and he's disputing that he's an illegal, undocumented immigrant, And here's one of those statements where he says, Craig Lang supports Cristhian's right to be in this jurisdiction, and for the government to support any other idea of status publicly flies in the face of such statement, Richards wrote. Christian deserves the court's protection as to his characterization before any jury poll. So basically, that sounds to me like he's in correspondence with Craig Lang, because Craig Lang, I think, retained his services for the employee. And that's where that's how he's coming to the conclusion that he was here legally, because Craig Lang is telling him that. Because Craig Lang hired him. That's my assumption, okay? But by now, it's been determined that he's not, that he provided fake ID, that he's an undocumented immigrant, and honestly, and so my question is, why is this guy still being paid for, the attorney, by the farm, if that assumption is correct? Sorry, just jumped all around. Okay, and honestly, and again, and this one point took me probably 7 minutes, and I can't even see my time. But I honestly think this windy road that the farm went through to get to this conclusion that he provided fake ID, to me seems a little contrived, and like it was just a kabuki dance, the guy, they pulled the whatever file they pull, and then they realize that then they look on the photocopy of his ID and realize that it doesn't have the same name as what they've been calling him as an employee. It's a fairly large farm, and these are high level people, so they don't necessarily deal with the low level employees. So they probably didn't know him by name. I'm just saying. I don't know. All right, moving on. I'm not stopping. I don't know if I'm going to get to playing this. You really got to watch it because it's completely strange. The back and forth. And he's got a real problem with Trump. I'm definitely going to play that. In fact, I'm going to play that right now. He said he's trying to play Trump's name games, and he's calling him names. Sad and sorry Trump, I think is what he says. All right, let me just a sec.
Says that he blacked out after that. Your response to the fact that it is now known that she died from sharp force injury?
I would have no comment on those reports until I see the reports.
You haven't seen the medical examiner's report from your case?
As far as the death, I'm real sorry about the death. I'm not going to make any comment on a report until somebody testifies to in more detail concerning the matter.
So you haven't read the medical examiner's report with regard to your client that came out today. But anyway, so I just filled you in on the headline there, which is that she was killed with sharp force trauma, blunt force trauma, essentially, which indicates that she was hit hard with something, hard enough to kill her, according to these reports. We also have this picture today of the cornfield where her body was found, and he described to the police in detail that he brought her to a secluded location. He carried her over his shoulder, took her about 20 meters into the cornfield, and then left her covered in some corn leaves and left her there face up. That's the report according to your client. Do you want to comment on that at all?
I understand that. That is what the investigators are stating. As far as you're asking me, I've been here. I'm in Tama County. I've been in court proceedings most of the afternoon or morning here in Tama County, and I will have the opportunity to review those matters.
Okay. This is a soundbite that you said. I want to play something that you said that's gotten a lot of attention yesterday about your case. Let's play that.
And the law includes presumption of innocence and due process before critical mistake of saying the outrageous thing that sad and sorry Trump has been saying. And he said it about this case, which there's no premise in the history of our country where a man in that position, a sad and sorry Trump, should even be commented on him until we get past this presumption of innocence.
So why did you decide to bring the president into it?
Well, he's brought himself into it, and I think that people are buying into the concepts and notions that Mr. Trump is bringing forward. And at this stage in the process, it's not proper. I think there's a misconception of what the role of a defense attorney is. My role is to vigorously represent Christian, and my obligation is to the administration of justice in a manner that seeks out the truth, in a manner that helps people and societal problems in a rational, peaceful,
I understand what you're saying.
and efficient manner.
I just think, in terms of the question of his immigrant status, ICE and his employer both verified today, because there was some confusion about it, both verified today that they consider him an illegal immigrant from Mexico. And I fail to see how that fact isn't, it's just a fact. I mean, if he was from Colorado and lived there for 20 years, we would know that. But we know that he's an illegal immigrant who arrived from Mexico and has lived in Iowa for 4 to 7 years. So I fail to see how that's irrelevant, or how bringing that in is not part of the facts that surround this case. How is it not?
That's rhetoric. The United States Constitution provides, if you're not a citizen, you still are entitled to the jurisdictions of the courts and entitled to equal protection under the law.
I don't think anyone said he wasn't. What people are saying is that he arrived here illegally from Mexico 4 to 7 years ago.
That's your rhetoric on it.
It's not rhetoric.
That's what
the immigration officials are saying their reports indicate. He used a false name to work for an employer. They thought he was somebody else. We know that as well. These are the facts that are being dug up in the case. No one's making judgment on them themselves. They're just saying, this is what we've learned so far about this individual. So why wouldn't that be relevant? This is his background.
You want to jump to say they're facts. Have these people been under oath? Have these people provided the opportunity for Christian to present his point of view on the matter?
It's not a point of view question. It's not a point of view question. Either he's here legally or he's not here legally. It's really not a point of view question. It's not a rhetoric question, sir.
That's maybe your point of view, Martha. We have a society here, an agrarian society, where these individuals are welcome here. They are accepted by the wealthy individuals that are running these companies, and they're a vital part to the communities.
They may be,
and
sir.
For anybody to say otherwise,
you're talking apples and oranges. They may be accepted by the community. They may be brought in. The company that hired him says that he gave them a fake ID, that they ran that through their system of the Social Security system, is what they said. That they ran it through. He gave them a fake ID. So these are the facts. Whether or not they were welcomed to work there is that's fine. But he came here illegally is just part of the equation. So to say that that's bringing politics into it, I think you're putting rhetoric and point of view on it.
Well, you're trying to say that his state of mind was in such a way. We're dealing with an individual that has a middle school education, so his perception is entitled to equal protection and due process. Now, you can jump to it and just say, these are the facts, but that doesn't make them facts because you say so, Martha. The man is entitled to a hearing on the issue.
And he has an aid. These are facts.
Okay. Honest to goodness, I want to know who is paying for this dude. And it's really curious to me. I'm telling you, these things, it's very, very fishy here. All right. The fact that, I thought the farmers who hired this dude, and yet he was just, he's obviously blatantly anti-Trump. And that's going to come out. They know that's going to come out. And why is that? I'm telling you, man. I don't know, dude. I maybe everything is the way it appears that, I had this idea. I did. I had it the very night that this announcement happened, that he was charged with murder, that I had this idea that somebody else committed this crime and that he was taking the fall for it. I know. I mean, it's a strange thing, and there's already some witness accounts that say he did this similar thing to him. There's a young 17-year-old, her older sister has talked to the Daily Mail. He said he approached her. She spoke of her younger sister saying he approached her. Multiple encounters with him, and she creeped him out, and she had to keep telling him to leave her alone, and that he approached her, I think, in a car. A car that isn't registered to him, and we don't know. I'm just blabbering, but and the car isn't registered to him. We don't know who it's registered or whether it's registered to the fake name or what. The Chevy Malibu that showed up on the camera. But I had this idea that somebody else committed this crime, and he was basically was taking the fall for it for reasons I don't know why exactly. It's just that so much doesn't make sense. And let me just try to just take a couple of them. Starting with the fact with the surveillance footage, okay, that the general public provided to the DCI or the Poweshiek Sheriff's Office, and that showed up like 1 to 2 weeks ago, which would have been, 2 to 3 weeks into the case, which to me that alone seems very strange. The fact that this case is just so high profile. It's nationwide. It's on television all day. I mean, every day. And yet, for some reason, a person who has a surveillance camera, and knows that the exact time when she, was jogging, supposedly on the streets of Brooklyn, Iowa. It's a very small little town. Wouldn't have checked their surveillance camera until it took 2 to 3 weeks for that to materialize. That seems strange to me. It does, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions on anyone. It may be just, they just didn't think she was jogging that area or whatever, and finally just decided to check it out or whatever. I mean, the FBI had actually made some statements that it took time to review it, and that's the next question: is why did it take after? Because it was 1 to 2 weeks ago that they got the surveillance footage, but it took them that long to basically identify the car and then identify the person who was driving the car. But in a town of 1,400 people, where pretty much everybody knows everybody, why did it take that? I mean, you would think that the moment they saw that car, they would know whose car that was. I mean, there can't be that many Chevy Malibus in a town of 1,400 people. Okay, and they said they had to go frame by frame, but I mean, when you're watching a video, you watch the video. When you see the person run across the screen, you go, there she is, and there goes the car. And yeah, I mean, and they got major sophisticated. It just is extremely odd to me. So it just seemed like, it seemed like, I don't know, man. I mean, and then you have Pence meeting with the family, Pence coming in. That's very strange, extremely strange. And it seemed to me like somebody had knowledge of what was coming, and that there was this prominent family in the community that had ties to the Republican Party, even if they're not even pro-Trump, probably. They're probably not, but Pence probably wants to run for president one day, and his presidency is going to run through Iowa. It's going to start in Iowa. But what, I don't know. I'm just saying, it's so weird that he met with them, um, Pence doesn't meet with missing persons cases, the vice president of the United States. And it just seemed like somebody through back channels had that information had flowed up to him because they already knew. I mean, that's what it seemed like to me, I'm just going to keep going through my other, uh, you know, I don't know about his English speaking status. I don't think he speaks very good English, but I do think he speaks some English. Because I mean, you have the accounts of the other girl having encounters with him, multiple encounters with him before she starts getting creeped out by him. But speaking with him, and supposedly he was a well-spoken guy, is what she said. Unless she spoke Spanish, I brought that up in my previous one. I do have a question about why, he was arrested on. There's so many questions. On Friday, he was arrested on Friday. I mean, I saw that in the Daily Mail, and I mean, over here in the Daily Mail, Baina, that's supposedly the name that he provided on his ID, an alternate spelling of his paternal last name. his middle name, or his Bahina. I don't know if that's what they're referring to, his paternal last name, because his name Chris, Chris Cristhian Bahina Rivera, and that is his real name. You know, that's his real name. He's asked in court, "Is that your real name?" And he acknowledges it is. And Bana was supposedly on the fake ID. I don't know if that's a um, a an alternative spelling of that Bahina, and maybe that's why he goes by Cristhian instead of Christian, because it's really Christian. Or no, I don't know. It's who knows. But the Lang fam, and it's Dane Lang. I'm almost certain is Craig Lang's son, not his brother, and he is. I know he is. I mean, there's pictures here. Is it this one? It's There it is, right there. Um, Dane Lang and Craig Lang. Craig Lang is one of the owners of the farm. I believe he owns it with his brother, Eric Lang, and I think his son is also a co-owner of the farm and the manager of the farm, Dane Lang, and he's the younger man. And they both gave this press conference here. And I'm gonna put myself down so I can just show you. He's got and Craig Lang's got a busted foot or something. That's Dane Lang, the manager and son of Craig Lang. And this is Craig Lang. Craig Lang is the Iowa official who was the former president of the Farm Bureau, the former president of Regions, and who ran for secretary of Agriculture, actually in the primary, the Republican primary for the Secretary of Agriculture, and I'm presuming he didn't win. Okay, and they make various statements. So, but in these photos, it says right there, Craig Lang, co-owner, speaks with his son and co-owner Dane Lang. Okay, I mean, there's multiple captions that say Dane Lang is the son. Dane Lang, co-owner of Yerby Farms, speaks to the press with his father and co-owner Craig Lang, and Eric Lang, I think, is his brother, who's also owns the phone, is a co-owner of the farm, I believe, and but we haven't seen him. Just some housekeeping. There was something in here too. It says the attorney. I played most of that Martha MacCallum interview. It's just pretty unbelievable. I'm glad I did. I mean, I watched it myself, but the attorney of Mollie Tibbetts suspended. A suspected killer fought back Thursday night against investigators' statements that his client Cristhian Rivera is an illegal immigrant, calling it rhetoric. And they spoke to his aunt as well, Rivera, Fox News did. In addition to speaking to Richards, Fox News on Thursday interviewed the aunt of the aunt of his girlfriend, and the mother of they have a daughter together, Monares. And I spoke in my previous video, and she hasn't lived in that trailer. He lives in the trailer here. I'll get to it in a second, man. For like a year. I think she moved out. So they broke up like a year ago. But she went to school with Mollie, and she's a year older than Mollie. She was on the cheerleading squad. Mollie was on the on the track team. But they were classmates basically, but a year separated. So, but the aunt of Iris Monares, Rivera's ex-girlfriend, and the mother of his daughter, who went to high school with Tibbetts, the aunt said Rivera, whom she described as a good father to his daughter, lived with Monares until about a year and a half ago. When the couple broke up, Monares has since moved out of the area. He was a good person. He was a jokester, the aunt said of Rivera through a translator for us. He was a good and normal person, not aggressive or violent. He was normal, just like us. Relatives, according to Monares' aunt, can't believe Rivera's alleged involvement, and said they were hoping it's probably an error, and will wake up from this nightmare. In the weeks when Tibbetts went missing, Rivera didn't act differently, the aunt said. She added that when the family would get together, we would talk about the situation, and Rivera would comment, as well as we all would. We would all say that We were surprised and scared because this is a quiet town. This has never happened around here, and we're all sad while awaiting, pleading to God that she would be found alive and that everything would be fine. He never displayed signs for us to suspect that he had anything to do with this. The aunt said if Rivera is guilty of the crimes of which he's accused, she just wants to know why. Why did you do this? You're a talented young man. You had a future ahead of you. Why? Why did it have to come to this? That's what I would ask him. The aunt said. She said the family was awaiting DNA results, which she hoped would clear his name. I don't know what that means. The DNA results, awaiting the DNA results, and that sounds like she's heard the authorities that said that they're going to be providing some DNA results in terms, I guess, maybe found on her body. I mean, the medical examiner said that, they're going to be continuing her exam to see for, various things, sexual assault and so on. I mean, there was I don't even have it up here, but there was in the People magazine, one, I think it's Mordvet, the, one of the persons for the, I think the criminal investigation, the DCI. He was saying it's strange for somebody who had no criminal record to go straight from no criminal record for right to rise to, the level of abduction, murder. And, but, part of that is because of his illegal status, his illegal undocumented status, that there's just no record of him. I know that they have, you know, they still commit crimes and there's records of those, but that could just, that could be part of it. I don't know. All right, so here is here's the house where he lives. Okay, here's the black Chevy Malibu, and let me just go through a couple of these because it shows, and I believe he lived in the trailer, but they also lived in this home. And as soon as, excuse me, let me come back up. As soon as they determined as soon as the medical examiner released at least a preliminary report on the autopsy that she had died from sharp force injuries or whatever, basically from stabbings. The FBI within minutes of getting that were on scene and basically looking for a murder weapon. With canine dogs. I think there was 3 or 4 FBI agents there. Closing it off. There were 4 individuals that they pulled out of the big home. From as I understand it, 2 of them, a man and a woman, they let go. Doesn't say what they did with the other 2 individuals and so forth. But they were looking for a murder weapon as soon as that preliminary medical examiner's autopsy report came out. And there's even pictures of them being there. That is Iris Monarez. That's the black Chevy Malibu, and like they said that there were distinct features of the Chevy Malibu that allowed them to trace it to him. But I just don't think they would need to. In a town that small, 1,400 people, there can only be so many black Chevy Malibus, and who's the car registered to? Since it's not registered to him, and I have a feeling it's not registered to his fake name either. But I don't know that. I have no idea, to be honest with you. But you can see it's it's kind of a mess and stuff, and there's whatever. All right, man. I kind of was jumbled all over the place. It just I've like I said in my previous video, before we knew who was charged with murder, I was coming up with ideas that weren't even close. They were not even close. They were completely wrong, and I could be completely wrong in some of my suspicions right now. But I just had this feeling that maybe I don't know, that he was being set up to take the fall for this. I know, and I mean, during that hearing, I mean, and it's natural during that hearing, the one that was televised, when they're talking about the bond, he was very attentive to that, and he was watching his interpreter when they were talking about the bond. what they were going to set the bond at and stuff. He was locked in on her, listening to. He wanted to know about that, and because naturally, if he gets out on bond, if he has a chance, he wants to just cruise to Mexico. And, I don't know, I had this idea that somebody was just because of the nature of the situation with all the other migrant workers, he was just taking the fall and that he was going to be provided a way to slip away, and, it's a pretty, it's probably just my wild imagination. Very easily could be that, but it's just a lot. I mean, let me see if I think why all this time say they get to him? Why didn't he lie? Why didn't he just keep lying? Um, I mean, why did he admit it? And then he admits it. He admits it, but he admits it in a way where he says he forgets everything, but he admits to doing it. Like if you're gonna come up with that if you're gonna come up with that lie, okay, that you did it, you assaulted her, you followed her, I guess because they have it on camera, they have the car on camera, but you know they don't see him in the car. The car's not registered to him. But so if he's going to come up with that lie that that he forgot everything up until once after the assault started until he disposed of the body, you know, why wouldn't you just lie outright and just deny it completely, you know, and or at least continue to lie for a while until they find it, you know. So, all right. I covered as much as I could. One last point before I go, and this video was a mess. I hope you hung with me through it, though. I really do. And my last point is this. I tell you, I do find it odd that they chose this guy to represent him. Honestly, because like I said throughout this video, I thought he was being set up maybe to take the fall for this for whatever reason. Um, The other thing was, before I make my final point, but the other thing was, it's like all if I'm right about some of my suspicions about like that maybe there was they had an idea of of this ahead of time, and like the surveillance camera being handed over um, 2 to 3 weeks later or 2 weeks later, even though, this was so high profile. How did they not like find that right away? And even after they get the surveillance camera, it takes a week and a half to pin down the car, even though it's only 1,400 people in the town. And how many Chevy Malibus are there? Black Chevy Malibus are there on the most prominent farm in the community? So my point is like, why would you go like even if like say that's right, and Pence meeting with the family, and there's one of the owners of the farm is a fairly prominent Republican official. Why would you go through all this delay just because you want to avoid the fact that you have an undocumented worker working at your farm? That seems like a lot, just to avoid the embarrassment of it being I mean, I understand if he's being accused of murder, that's pretty embarrassing, but it just seems like you'd be better off unless there was something worse to hide. You'd be better off just I mean, you'd be perceived much better by the public if you were got to the bottom of it as fast as possible and weren't delaying in anything to avoid stuff. So my last point is this. I actually was starting to think maybe he was being set up for a fall, right? Okay, maybe. It's a huge maybe. But I was maybe starting to think that until I saw this attorney's interview. Because honestly, why did they pick an attorney that pretty much any pro-Trump persons can't stand to defend this guy? So basically half the country is going to automatically not like him. I guess half would if they, but why would they do that? Why would they pick a guy that, you know, makes you think he's guilty? This attorney, he made me think he's guilty again because I can't stand him. Sorry. You know, I'm not proud of that, but whatever. But he's you know, I mean, you watch this interview and you're like, dude, you just want to. All right, that's the end of this video. I hope you get my last point there. You know, it's very clever selection of an attorney if something else is going on here. That's the end of this video. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below, and I'll see you in the next video, man. Later.